Hey friends, happy Sunday. Today is Sunday, April 26th, and I'm really excited to be with you guys today. I hope you guys are having a great week and finding fun things to do at home and creative things. If you haven't already shared some of your chalk art with us, please share that in the Facebook group or send it to me at lisa@fcov.org. But we are going to jump right back in to the big picture story of God. So in our timeline, we are moving past Solomon and moving on to what is happening in the kingdom of Israel. Now, if you remember, because of Solomon's sin, it was split into two different groups. And so we're going to pick up with King Ahab and specifically Elijah. So Elijah was one of God's messengers, a prophet who told people what God wanted them to do. God sent Elijah to confront King Ahab because Ahab was worshiping a false god called Baal and had led God's people to worship Baal too. This was really grievous because the Israelites were God's chosen people, and they were choosing to not worship God, to worship a false god, one that was not true. The one true God had commanded the people not to worship anybody but him. So our big picture question and answer for the next couple weeks is, how many gods are there? And we will find that there is one true God who alone deserves worship. We talked about worship last week in Psalms. There's only one. He's a good God, just like we learned in our last unit. There's only one that deserves worship. And through our next several stories, that's what we're going to learn. All right, grab out your activity pages. For my preschool through kindergartners, it's this one, Find the Differences. Mom and Dad, remember there's some family starters right here, some questions, family activities. I actually really like this one. It says, roast marshmallows and enjoy time around the fire pit with your family. We have a fire pit. It's a propane fire pit. But this has been a fun thing that we've been enjoying doing at night. S'mores are a necessity in my house, like milk and eggs. So that's just us, but I hope you guys do that. Send us some pictures. That'd be awesome. Okay, for our second and third graders, this is the one, set of 12. And for our fourth through sixth graders, the journal, you can follow around the story when I share it here in just a minute. Whoop, and an activity on the back. So be sure to save these and bring these to me when we come back together, because again, I'll have prizes. I'm going to be collecting a lot of prizes because it's a lot of time, and I'm confident you guys are going to bring me a lot of things. So I'm looking forward to that. All right, let's jump in. If you are following along in scripture, oops, sorry, that doesn't matter. Let's look at 1 Kings chapter 18. So it's in the Old Testament: Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, Joshua, Judges, Ruth. So keep going. You're going to get to 1 Kings chapter 18. Let's jump right in. Ahab was the king of Israel. He was an evil king. If you read in 1 Kings, you'll read a lot about different kings, and you'll find that oftentimes they describe them and then they tell you if they're good or if they're evil. This one was evil. He was quite evil. He led the Israelites away from God. That's pretty bad. And the Israelites worshipped a false god named Baal. The things King Ahab did made God angry. So God caused a drought. I don't know if you guys know what a drought is, but it means there's no rain in the land, and that means there's no water. They didn't have faucets like we have in indoor plumbing, like toilets and showers. They had depended on the rain in order to have enough water. So this was a big deal. For 3 years, no rain fell on the land. The lakes and rivers dried up. People could not grow crops in their field. Their animals were dying. And finally, God was ready to send rain. God sent a prophet named Elijah to give a message to King Ahab. You have caused this trouble by disobeying God and worshiping false gods. Elijah told him. Then Elijah invited King Ahab, the Israelites, and the prophets who worship Baal to gather at Mount Carmel. Elijah told the people, make up your minds. If you believe the Lord is God, follow him. But if Baal, follow him. So Elijah was telling them, you have to choose. You can't serve God and serve Baal because there's only one true God. Elijah set up a challenge to show who the one true God is. The prophets of Baal set up an altar for their false god. Elijah told them, "You call to Baal and ask him to send fire to your altar." Elijah told the people, "I will call on the Lord. The God who answers by fire is the one true God." From morning until noon, the prophets of Baal cried out to Baal, "Answer us," they said, but no one answered. Then the people gathered around Elijah. He dug a trench around his altar. He prepared a bowl and put it on a pile of wood. Elijah had 4 jars of water poured on the wood. Then he asked for more water, and everything was wet. I don't know if you guys realize, but it's really hard to start wet wood. Water puts out fires, doesn't start fires. So he was making it hard. He was showing, my God is so great that even in the harder circumstance, he can do this thing. Elijah prayed to God, "Lord, answer me so that these people will know that you, Lord, are God." God sent fire from the sky, and the fire burned up the bowl and the wood and the stones and the dust. It burned up all the water in the trench. There was no doubt that the Lord is the one true God. The men who worshiped Baal fell on their faces and said, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." The sky grew dark with clouds, and God sent a great rain, and the Lord ended the drought and proved that he is the one true God. So this is our first example for the next 6 weeks of how there is one true God, and God proved it in this story. The people who worshiped the false god Baal, they danced and they cried and they did all kinds of things to get their God, not a real God, attention, but he doesn't exist. So we can't hear. He wasn't real. He was something that they made up to worship instead of God. So we know that there is one true God, and he proved it by hearing and answering and sending the fire. And he proved it again. We learned at Easter, he showed his love for us by sending his son Jesus, who bled and died and rescued us from sin so we can trust him, right? That's what we learned. So this is the first example of how there is one true God who deserves to be worshiped. And I want to remind us of our key passage, which is Hebrews 1:1-2. In the past, God spoke to our ancestors through the prophets at many times and in various ways. But in these last days, he spoke to us by his son. See, in the past, ancestors, they needed Elijah to come talk to them and say what God had to say to them. But now Jesus speaks directly to us. And that is good news. And that is we can talk directly to him. And we want to remember these things. So I hope you practice this. When we get back together, tell me Psalm 100 verse 5 and tell me Hebrews 1:1-2. There are going to be so many prizes. Be sure to bring your activity pages for that as well. And I have one more thing for us today. I want us to do an activity. So you guys should have gotten a flame activity pack. And I'm going to do it a little bit differently than what I described. Originally I said just cut these into rods, but instead I would say cut it in half. I have black, you guys probably have brown. And so cut out flames. I cut them out in all kinds of different sizes. I already started taping it. I'm going to tape it to one corner. See the rectangle? Tape it to one corner. And what I do is I just tape, I put one piece on the back of one and then stick it, kind of make it creative. And then I put, let's see what I stuck it like that. And then let's do one more piece. Do red if I could grab it. Okay, stuck it to the back right here. There we go. I just kind of cut them all in weird different flame-like shapes and I tape it all down like this. All right, so take the shorter end and we're gonna roll it instead. This is gonna make it a lot easier to fold. Okay, roll it. There we go. And we get this torch, which is really cool. So when you play with your torch, remember that God uses his power to send fire, right? To rescue us from sin through Jesus' death and resurrection on the cross. So I hope you have fun with this activity. Take a picture of it, send it to me at lisa@fcov.org so I can see that you had fun with it. And I also hope that you will share it under this video that will be posted in the Faith Families Connect page on Facebook. So I hope you guys have a great week. I cannot wait until the day that we can see each other again. But until then, remember that there is one true God who deserves to be worshiped. Bye.